Jack Spade back here with you, High Noon Leatherworks, for another leather adventure. And today we're going to start another new project, and it's going to be a either something to store your keys and change and things like that in, a little catch-all, or I've also made them a little bit larger size for these dice gamers that roll dice in them, and that keeps your dice from going all over the place. And I'll explain how I do the bottom in those. So come on in and let's get started. Alright, again, I am using some, I wouldn't call it scrap, but some smaller pieces that I have laying around. This is probably, I'm guessing about 4 ounce. I don't have a gauge or anything, but maybe 4 to 5 ounce leather. It's somewhat stiff, but you've seen me use this on other projects that I've done on this channel. So I just work it around a little bit, kind of loosen it up before I get started. On this, I already pre-cut it, so I cut an 8 by 8 piece, 8 inches by 8 inches. Again, I've done some of these for dice gamers, like people that play different games with dice, but I've done them larger, maybe 10 by 10 or 12 by 12. That way, what they do is they roll their dice, especially if they're smaller dice, and they actually throw them inside this. And then it has small, like 1-inch walls or whatever on it, so your dice don't go flying everywhere. And on those, I'll explain how I do the bottom on the inside. I don't just leave it raw leather. So let's go ahead and get started. What I'm going to do is you fold over your first corner to a point and make sure that your edges match, and then you figure out how far you're going to come in to put your rivet, your first rivet. So let's go ahead and let's take a look and see. Looks like 1 inch would work, and probably down from the edge, if I come in 1 inch and down 3/8 of an inch is what it looks like. So I know that my ruler is 1 inch wide, so I'm just going to lay that at the point and come down 3/8 of an inch and put a little mark with my stylus. I'm just going to push on that and make me a little mark, and I'm keeping this folded over. I don't know if you can see that small mark or not in there, but then I'll take my 1/8 inch punch on my poly board, cutting board, and I'll fold this over, and I want to keep my edge straight all the way down as I fold this over. And then as I punch through both pieces, I know I have a nice square corner. So there, I punched through both pieces, and then I want to take my hardware, my rivet hardware, and I'll put in my first rivet in that corner. So I'm going to put my rivet stud through the back, lay it on my setter base, take my cap, slide it on, and then take my setter and go ahead and set my rivet. So that corner is set. So then I have to go either to this corner and do it, or you can go to this next corner. It doesn't really matter at that point. I like to go straight across and do the next one because I know I can fold that over all the way and get it square. So I know I have two precise square corners to start with. So I'm going to do the same thing to that. Come down an inch. Let me turn this around where I can see that edge better. So I'm going to come down an inch and up 3/8 of an inch, just like I did on the other side, and make a mark. And then I can punch that, making sure that I keep this square the whole time. And then do the same thing. Take your rivet stud. I put mine in from the back to the front. Take my cap, put it on, take my setter, and set my rivet. So there's the second one. So this is what it looks like. Looks like a triangle at this point. Now I'm ready to go ahead and do one of the next corners. Now obviously you can't fold it all the way across, but you know those two are square, so as long as you keep this even, these two pieces even, and then what I have to do is, in order to get my punch on there and my mark, I'm going to have to move, I flip my polyboard over so it's nice and flat, and then I have to move to the edge of my workspace. So again, I'm going to come down an inch from the end and 3/8 of an inch from the edge. Make a mark, and then I can go ahead and punch that. So it does get a little more cumbersome and a little more difficult as you move around each corner. And the smaller, I've noticed the smaller the dimension of your like square, the smaller the square that you start with, the more difficult it is for me. Seems like the larger the square is to start with, the easier it is to maneuver. Maybe that's just me. So I'll do the last corner. Again, 1 inch from the corner in, 3/8 of an inch from the top edge. Make a mark. Punch my hole. And that one didn't make it all the way through the second layer, so I'll clean that up. There we go. Take my rivet, and get me a cap. And I'm using, for this thickness of leather, I'm using 5/16 long rivets. They seem to work really well with this thickness of leather. So there's all four corners done, and that's what creates your catch-all, or you can throw your change in there, or in this case, if I wanted to use it on my workbench for catching certain hardware or studs or whatever, any kind of hardware, it'd work great for that. Now, here's the next thing. I've also done these where you notice the squares, the sides aren't really that square, because your leather obviously is rounded. It's not going to just fold over like a piece of paper. So you can work those edges with your thumbs to break, kind of bend that grain of that leather a little bit, and that'll help. But I found that if you moisten that down and then set something in the center of it that'll hold it flat and let it dry and cure that way, then it makes it real nice and stiff and makes it flat and square. So you can do that, and that'll help flatten that out a little bit, or you can just keep working that around, and that'll help square that up a little bit so it'll sit flatter. But I found that if you moisten that up and get it wet, just like wet forming, that you can get it to sit really flat, so it doesn't have that wave to the bottom, or that bowl shape to it. And you can probably see that right there. It just has a natural tendency to have that bowl shape. So you can moisten that, put something fairly heavy and square in there, and that'll wet mold that to where it's real nice and stiff and in that shape. Now, what I do, if I'm making this for dice, obviously it would be bigger than this. So like I said, probably 10 by 10. I'd start with a 10 by 10, or even a 12 by 12 piece to start with, or you could even go larger. It just depends on what the person would want. Then I save cardboard out of boxes, large boxes, and I'll measure the inside of that square and the bottom. Cut me out a piece of cardboard that fits kind of stiff in there, snug. Then I'll take some contact cement, and I'll put contact cement on my cardboard, and then some real nice pigskin, and I'll put some on one side of the pigskin. Then I'll cover this cardboard and fold my pigskin over about an inch or so, and that creates a super nice board that's got a soft covering on it with that pigskin. And then you can push it down in there, and it'll fit real nice and snug. And then what that does, it gives them a nice surface to throw their dice on. It's quiet. The dice don't go flying all over the table or onto the floor. It's great for kids. If kids are, one of the ones I made was this guy he plays Dungeons and Dragons with his son, and he was having a problem with his spending more time picking up dice off the floor than playing the game. So he wanted one large enough that they could roll their dice in, and then that way they don't have to chase their dice. But again, you could use it for holding tools, anything, little tiny pieces of scrap leather. They're just handy to keep things organized, or like I said, for the dice. So there's a quick little project you can do with some smaller pieces of leather, either for yourself to help organize your shop or your workbench, or for other people to throw their keys and their change in. They can set it on an entry table. It's nice looking. Again, you could put the pigskin soft. I use black with this colored leather, and it looks really good. So just something quick, simple, easy to do. Also, another great gift for someone. So just keep that in mind. Lots of uses for this. So appreciate you coming along, sharing this project with me. Please, as I always say, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.